Hello guys, bersama saya lagi dalam Alright Napa Channel. So kita ucapkan tahniah kepada Puan Nurul Izzah kerana mendapat undangan daripada Forum Ekonomi Dunia. Memang terbaik Padu. Ya, dan apabila diberikan soalan, Puan Nurul Izzah juga dengan mantap ya memberikan jawapannya. Jadi sahabat semua, saya ingin membawakan anda sesi soal jawab dalam Forum Ekonomi Ekonomi Dunia ini yang berlangsung di Switzerland. Jadi sekali lagi, tanpa membuang masa, ayo kita tonton video ini bersama-sama.
About yourself.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. My name is Amitabh Behar. As she said, I work as the Executive Director of Oxfam International. I've been working primarily on issues of justice, equality, and human rights.
Thank you so much. Carmen Correa, Chief Executive Officer of ProMujer.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Very happy to be here. Basically, with more than 30 years of experience working in Latin America and working around entrepreneurship, sustainable development, and of course, gender equality.
Thank you so very much, Carmen. Kate Fitz-Gibbon, Professor, Faculty of Business and Economics, Monash University, and a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader of 2024, please.
Thank you so much, and I'm balancing us out. This is my first time in Davos. And I am a professor from Australia and have spent more than the last decade researching and providing policy advice to governments, particularly in Australia and the UK, on violence against women and children.
Thank you so much. Nurul Anwar, Executive Director of Polity.
Salam and hello everyone. Thank you, Claudia. My name is Izzah Anwar, and I started as a political activist, was Member of Parliament, fortunate enough for 15 years, and then our party led a coalition in power. In 2021, during COVID, in my constituency, we managed to conduct a multidimensional poverty index study. It's the first COVID-related study, which I think is crucial as we exit the pandemic. And now I am in the policy space, and I'm really glad to be here the first time in Davos. And I hope all of us can really have a robust discussion. And thank you, all of you, for giving up dinner for us.
Well, no, you'll have dinner later, hopefully. Yeah. Don't give it up completely. Yes, please. Asha Makana, Global Shaper of Nairobi Hub.
Thank you. I'm Asha Makana, Global Shaper from Nairobi Hub. Professionally, I'm a data engineering and an analytics team lead at a telecommunications company, and I'm a founder of a community-driven initiative called Kodietu, where we focus on teaching girls from underserved communities digital skills. I really care about girls' education.
I told the panelists that the Open Forum was the best session, actually the best forum of the World Economic Forum. So please, since so many of them are Davos first-timers, give them a big round of applause for being here today, and a welcome to the World Economic Forum. For all of you, please do share this in social media. We want to make it open forum and share this with everybody. So hashtag WEF25, hashtag Open Forum 2025. Okay, so pretty much the world is browner, more feminine, and with a bigger heart than ever before. The gender, if you start looking at the trajectory of gender equality throughout the history, we've never been in a better position. There's never been a better time for a woman to be alive, not in the caves, not in the Middle Age, not 10 years ago. There's more access to education, there's more access to electricity, there's more access to water, and yet the challenges prevail. And what we're going to be discussing today is, one, establishing the problem. Number two is, what are the enablers and threats that we're going to have. And number three, we're going to try to focus on solutions so that we can leapfrog and advance this gender gap. We're going to have a lot of time for questions and interventions from the audience. So please start taking note at the end when we're going to have the time so that you can intervene. So that we can level set the conversation, I thought I would start with just providing a couple of data points so that we can start from the same basis of data. Number one, the Global Gender Gap Report of the World Economic Forum 2024 says that gender parity remains 134 years away at the current pace. That means in order for a woman to have gender parity with men, there's still 134 years to go. that we're not going to wait that long. And this is the panel in which we're going to start seeing how can we do it. Women represent 50% of the global population, and yet only 25% of leadership positions worldwide. Closing the gender gap, however, would contribute more than $28 trillion to the global GDP by 2025. So it makes absolute business and economic sense. Companies with more women in leadership roles perform 15 to 20% better on average. So there is a business case out there that has been made. And the question is, why are we not seeing more progress if the business case is there? And when it comes to things like AI, the role of AI and tech, where we can see whether this can help us or not, but AI has a potential to close the gender gap in education, healthcare, and hiring, but only 22% of AI professionals globally are women, risking biased outcomes. The last thing I want to say about my community in the U.S., the U.S. Latina community, is that Latinas, we are 9% of the United States of America. We create businesses, small businesses, 6 times faster than any other group in the United States, making us the job creator #1 in the country. And despite all of that, yeah, venga las Latinas, thank you. Despite all of that, we're the least paid of every single group in the United States, making it 53 cents of the dollar, and we are less than 1% in senior positions in the country. And there is a backlash happening against diversity, equity, and inclusion. You see it in the comments of global CEOs saying openly that there's more masculine energy needed out there. You see companies actually cutting their diversity, equity, and inclusion. And according to the Edelman Trust Barometer that was launched today, there are 2 data points that I would like to close with. #1 is that the non-for-profits, which are represented here today, are back to being a trusted institution for the world, where people all across the globe do not trust their media, do not trust their governments, do not trust their companies, but they are starting to trust non-for-profits because they have 2 things, competence and ethics. And the second piece of data from the Edelman Trust Barometer, and with that I'm going to close, is that 50% of white men feel discriminated against, and therefore there's a backlash against this gender movement, against anything that is related to opening up the opportunity for everyone else. This discussion will take around 45 minutes, then we're going to open it up for all of you. I would like to start by engaging you all. Can you tell me by a raise of hands if you believe that gender equality will be achieved within your lifetime? Can you raise your hand if you believe that gender equality will be achieved in your lifetime? Wow. Okay. That's about like 2%. Yeah. All right. Let me just see whether you're awake. Can you raise your hand if you think that gender equality will not be something that you will see in your lifetime? Okay, so you're awake, but you're okay. I got it. Thank you so much. This gives us a sense as a panel of where we are. And I would like to start this discussion by asking each of the panelists to help us to paint the picture. What is the real problem that we're seeing in gender equality? And I would like to start with Amitabh, providing us with a global perspective of gender inequality and the persistence
Thank you, Claudia. So I come from Southeast Asia, Malaysia specifically, and it's a very important region. It is strategic. Its strategic neutrality is always utilized for semiconductor-related investments. And of course, for manufacturing, and Malaysia, as well as the other nations in Southeast Asia, remain a pivotal part of the semiconductor value chain. But beyond that, I think what's concerning, in this quest where you want to achieve GDP per capita numbers, and I love that Carmen said, you come to WEF, you come to Davos, and you really want to hear that there is concern on the things that matter. It's not just about leveling up the ceiling, getting economic growth, but also making sure you're leveling up the floor. And up to 75% of Southeast Asian women, numbering 350 million of them, are in informal work. You have no work insurance, it's very, very precarious. And of course, it's a low-wage economy. So I mentioned earlier, when I was a member of parliament, my 3rd term, we did the multidimensional poverty index study. So we added the 3 COVID-related measurements, and we saw that female-headed households have it worse. And the children of these female single moms, right, they will be inheriting intergenerational trauma. So that's why for me today, the quest and the push for social protection, safety nets, for gender inclusion, because you want boys, and later on in Block 3, Claudia will show this, you want boys to be part of the equation. And it's so scary because, as what Amitabh alluded to, the Gallup poll has showcased, we speak so much about reducing the gender gap, but there's this gender polarization taking place in countries like America, South Korea, Europe, where younger boys are becoming extremely right-wing and lesser academically qualified. Younger girls are becoming far more qualified because we study hard, but more liberal in their viewpoints. And this growing polarization, of course, will cause social strife, ethnic tensions, gender-based tensions. And that's why, for me, this conversation, we have to address the informality to make sure women can reach their full potential, but also include boys in the conversation so that there's mobility on all fronts. Now, looking into Malaysia, we have a smaller percentage of informal workforce, 9.8%, from those working formally, in the working population. So that's encouraging. But I think that's why you don't want to rest on your laurels, right? You want to look deeper. And only 60% of people of working population are covered under our workers' pension, the employees' provident fund. So that's why, for me, I like the focus that you're not just saying, okay, we're upper middle income, we've hit the success, but you're always constantly looking at ways, how do you make sure that more people are covered? We have 4 million people, 55% men, 45% women, who are working in a gig economy. And if you're a gig Grab driver, you know that you're not going to get more or make more money in the next 5 years when you're a lot older and more tired. So that's why, for me, again, going back to the agenda, when we have clear-cut policies, we introduce policies 5 years after Bangladesh did their microcredit program for women. What am I saying? I'm saying that in this crazy, polarized, with the American president being the way he is, we still have ways where we can learn from the Global South, leverage from each other, and implement programs which we'll talk about later. But that's why we need this urgency, this sense of urgency to change the status quo.
Thank you so much, Izzah. Asha, Africa's perspective. Yes. What's your perspective in Africa, particularly Kenya, and you're dealing with the group of young people, so youth, Africa, what's the situation?
Thank you, Claudia. I'm really honored to share
syndrome because, in a particular war-torn region or genocide, you have the Lost Boys for Sudan, right, or the Lost Boys for Gaza, whereby they lose the opportunity to enjoy life, to live life normally like other people. So in Malaysia, you can also bring this concept whereby, because of the lost opportunities of enjoying formal education, they end up not having a meaningful job opportunity. So there's that sense of displacement. It's zero-sum. Another woman takes my place, right? Another woman in university. And these women are talking about women's rights, and they're being promoted in the civil service, in the private sector, and they become bosses. So in a way, you're having to ensure that this location, whether it's an elderly village head leader or whether it's a young boy, everybody is accorded that opportunity to enjoy mobility. So it is far more challenging for us because we know that women and girls have been left behind for so long. But in order to make sure that this quest for gender parity survives the onslaught, in order to make sure it's sustainable, we need to make them part of the equation. So in Malaysia, we're putting the technical and vocational education front and center for the programs. We are getting the young boys. You go for micro-credential program is fine. For as long as you have that diploma, you have that certification to improve your job prospects. And this is being done in a big way where billions are being spent so that there at least will be some degree of mobility enjoyed by different stakeholders. We also introduced, now the last point, because housewives, right? Nobody really bothers about the household chores that you do. So Malaysia introduced, again in collaboration with the Social Pension Fund, giving social security for housewives, right? Because again, you also have to educate the husbands. You got to be responsible. So part and parcel of that, again, is to change mindsets, and you cannot ignore education, even as you introduce programs and policies to plug in these different segments.
To both. So that you're saying is there's domestic violence. We're too focused on only talking about the women and protecting women as opposed to also educating men and bringing them on board.
In England, I mean, that's how you juvenile delinquents, right? You intervene with the boys. The bullies, right? The ones who got bullied will eventually become future bullies.
Because that's the backlash. Get ready for your questions. We're coming soon. Okay, I want to talk about AI and the use of technology. Amitabh, friend or foe, AI, gender equality?
Can I just quickly go back to Carmen?
You can.
Yes.
As long as it's quickly, because I'm going to give you 1 minute there.
Okay. So, Carmen and I agree pretty much always. I fundamentally agree with what you're saying. But I want to challenge the audiences here in the web. We are constantly hearing that let's get data and the problem would be fixed. At the moment, data is being contested. Facts are being contested. It's my truth versus your truth. So at this moment, how do you look at data is going to be a fundamental challenge for all of us. Coming back, technology is as good as
computer, a device. They want access to teachers who can train them to unlock this opportunity. And I think we can provide that.
Absolutely. And you were talking about funding too, right, Kate? Okay, Izzah, close us. Solutions, and where are you in the spectrum of...
I'm going to borrow John Mearsheimer, his take on being a hopeful realist, because actors, governments, white male, usually act based on a realistic viewpoint. And from there, it helps us plan better, right? Because if we expect people sometimes to just act on the basis of ethics, that's not going to work out. But our decision, our actions has to be predicated on ethics. AI, how do you make sure AI works well? Well, if there's no ethics there, of course, it's going to go crazy and it will turn the whole world into an explosion of cruelty. So for me, important to look at it from that point of view. Then you plan, you need to have, first and foremost, an ecosystem that allows for women, allows for men, the abusers as well as the abused, to seek help. So where do you go, right? If you want to escape your domestic abuser, where do you go? So I think that's important for governments to take into account. Governments also have to energize the strength of CSOs. We talk so much about civil society being the bulwark of trusted institutions. Well, governments are wasting their space if they're not utilizing the smartest, not just to plan in terms of utilization of AI, but to have an ecosystem that's inviting for good things to happen. And the third, I believe in scalability. Asha mentioned this, and for ASEAN, when you talk about women, peace and security, one of the things that Polity is planning is to have experts from South Thailand, South Philippines, Southeast Asia, because clearly if we band together, kind of make sure the solutions are replicated in an effective manner, and this means lobbying with your governments. You got to make sure the government does the right thing because time is not on our side. So I hope that everyone understands you're not just coming here, you listen, but you got to act as well because the world is on fire. And if you don't act, then all of us, our children, the future generation, will not have a future worth living for.
Amazing. And for quoting someone, I'm going to quote Hans Rosling, who thinks that we don't have to be optimistic only. We have to be possibilistic because change is possible. We already have eradicated in half the poverty of the world. In the last 25 years, we have provided education to 80% of women that were not educated before. So it is possible to see a country like mine, Mexico, having a woman president, by the way, with the greatest name, Claudia, as well. So let's see whether she delivers. All right, let's open up for the audience here and get some questions and some comments. I have a couple of comments, but also I want to call on, we've been talking about this data, about the 50% of men that feel discriminated against. Richard Edelman launched this morning the Edelman Trust Barometer. Richard, do you mind, if we can get a mic here, do you mind just giving us, I think that a couple of the highlights of your Trust Barometer that would be permanent for this discussion.
Okay, and then I want to ask a question.
Okay, just stand up, please.
And I'm married to her. So.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Small influence. So, okay, the first thing to know is that we've gone from fear to polarization to grievance. And fears are passive and grievances aggressive. And 2/3 of people we surveyed in 28 countries are feeling discriminated against. And the biggest joke is that 50% of American whites feel discriminated against. And when you're in a point of grievance, you have a theory of hostile activism, which means that you're going to punch back and you'll do misinformation and even physical violence. So we're in a bad place like this. So I guess my question to any of the panelists is, I didn't hear the word companies or private sector in the whole discussion. And so Unilever is a big client of Edelman, and they did something quite important on tea plantations and protecting women, and said, if you don't do this right, we're not going to buy your tea. So that's kind of good squeeze. So anyway, that was my
Company
question.
intervention before we have Kate.
I mean, I'll take, you've given the squeeze, let's go with the incentive.
Thank you so much.
You know, in Australia, and I put this out to all company leaders, anyone who has employees, in Australia we've just passed national legislation. Every single company has to offer 10 days paid domestic and family violence leave. That is to ensure that someone experiencing domestic and family violence is not risking their employment to seek help, to support their recovery, to support their children. Every organisation, every company could do that.
I love that. And I do have to give credit to the World Economic Forum, and here Michelle leading this incredible open forum, for pushing companies through your gender gap report and for doing as much as you can in involving that. Anyone has a burning point on companies, or shall we move to the audience? No? All right, let's go. Questions? All right, please. Yes. Yes, you.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Camila. I'm also part of the Global Shapers community. My question is, you've been talking about education a lot and put a lot of weight in the government, but also the civil society has done a poor work on concentrate fund in specific organizations. So how can civil society can decentralize money to actually make the money arrive on the ground for the women?
That's an amazing question. Wait, can I ask you to pass it on to my honorable colleague here? So let's take two questions and then we can answer, maybe even a third. Please. Honorable, please.
Thank you. So my name's Melodina. I'm a professor of technology and innovation governance. So my question is really this. There's less than 25% of women who are coders. And we are looking at AI as the savior for gender gap diversity. If we're creating games which are based on violence, if we're gamifying everything and making people think it needs to be incentivized, is this the world we want our children to come in? And what would you think from a gender gap point of view? Technology needs to change, and it needs to change quickly. So.
Thank you so very much. And if you don't mind, just identify yourself so we can know who you are, where you are.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ishan Pratap Singh. I am a global shaper and the curator for the New Delhi Hub.
Wow, the shapers are very active tonight. Give it to the shapers. All right, okay.
I'm here because, thank you, first of all, for everything that you all said. My question is, we spoke about AI in all the dangers that it can have. We spoke about the importance of education. And you spoke about how some people feel discriminated. The people who might oppress feel discriminated. And you just mentioned that we're gamifying in the wrong direction. I'm asking you, is it possible to bring these four things together and actually use AI to support cooperation and gamify cooperation? I'm saying this because we're trying to do something like that in the New Delhi hub, and we need help for that, but you are the most brilliant minds, and we need to ask you how. And we also launched a project for gender-based violence, and we need to find the how. I think we all agree on the what.
And also in collaborating in partnerships. Okay, we're going to pass it on. Who from the panel wants to respond on the funding distribution question? Who has the most expertise so that we don't have everybody responding everything? Would you like to go, Amitabh, since you have a global organization?
I can be very, very brief, as in the point is absolutely valid. There's at least now recognition around it, but the recognition doesn't translate into actual transfer of resources. And there's multiple factors around it, but what we certainly need to do is to build much greater momentum around decolonization, localization, and localization does not mean that you still have gatekeepers. It is about investing in the bedrock of civil society. And that has to, there's going to be a significant amount of change that's needed amongst donors who often will talk the language of localization, but the requirements they have are something which only an Oxfam can do. You will say that, oh, we need to, you need to put 5 million to be able to get a project of 10 million. That's not possible for a local organization. So those conversations are happening, but at the moment you're actually seeing resources go away from particularly feminist groups, gender rights group, and that needs to be changed. But that's again part of the larger pushback that we are looking at.
And we would love to see those funding going through global organizations like Oxfam to people like Asha on the ground who's doing the real work. Okay, AI. There were 2 questions on AI. Who feels that you can respond them from the audience? I think that you have a burning desire, like you have a burning, or can you, okay, Gary, yeah.
AI or technology, actually, it allows us to keep expanding our impact. It gives us a great opportunity, but it's also a challenge because we don't have as many women as we want developing technology, so we need more women in STEMs, but those nurturing that AI are mostly men. So those biases we have here, they are translated into the AI, and that is the big challenge. The other challenge we have is that how we can secure that nobody is left behind. When you give women access to technology, to an application, to a new platform, how do you secure that they will be able to use it? Because in some cases, they don't have the basic digital education to use that platform. So we have to educate, and we have to be very careful on how we implement the use of that technology. And with AI, I'm having a big concern with that, because I think that it will be very useful, it's needed, it's there, but it will be a challenge.
Asha?
I think to just add on that, I saw it's interesting because from the kids that I work with, there's a report done by code.org. It's an online learning platform for coding. By age 6, girls already have them, know that boys are better coders than them. And it's very sad. And one thing that I do with the class, because I am a female teacher, I inspire them. My class, because I'm there, they see representation. It's 80% girls. And I think when we are up there, when we are showing them the way, they will get so many of them. And I like what you're asking about gaming. So recently there's an organization that invited our students to go and try out a game that's being developed by Kenyans, and the girls had never used the pads, and they were like, when we took them there, they were very scared to just interact with it. But after that session, right now, all the girls in my class want to do gaming and animation. So I think that exposure and us being there and supporting them really helps.
Can we take 3 more questions, or do you have something that...
The pitch for the private sector, so later.
Yeah, go.
No, I just want to say that, companies like Vitrox is a major company in Malaysia on semiconductor, and they actually set up their own academy. They basically ensure that 2,000 students every year is educated. So I think private sector can also benefit from having sufficient and targeted human capital, but also include gender sensitization and all that, but not just come for the sake of, for example, installing, data centers without any benefits or multiplier benefits to the local community. So I think it's a call for them as well. It works for them because you need, for example, STEM and engineers far more, but this is a welcome from all countries in Southeast Asia for that purpose.
And we do want private sector working on technology solutions that will actually just like close the gender gap. If you ask any ChatGPT, show me the picture of 5 doctors in the US, all of them will be man, all of them will look like that, none of them will look like me. And as a fact, if I ask Siri, hey Siri, call Richard, meaning my husband, it says, I don't have a Richard in your database. So it doesn't even understand what I say. So we need them to get better. All right, we have a couple of questions. I think that we have one question on the back, please. Yes?
Hi, my name is Vera. It's so great to be here and learn all about what you guys are doing. So interesting. Okay, I'd like to know if I'll see gender parity in my lifetime, and I'm 13 years old. And as we know, the World Economic Forum predicts that it will take 134 years for gender parity to happen. But today, a report released from the Female Quotient states that 58% of employees think that employers can close the gap in 10 years if they wanted to. So my question is, what is a realistic hope?
I love that. Okay, so we have 2 more questions. I'm going to ask here on the front, and then we have another one. Okay, yes. I think that, please go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Cynthia Kleinbaum-Milner. I'm the co-founder of Ala Latina. It's an initiative to advance the representation of Latinas in the workplace. And I have a question, if you've seen a way to mobilize older women who are ahead. Because when I see what's happening in countries like Afghanistan or Iran, my question always goes to where are the mothers of these men that are letting this happen? So what have you seen working with older women really not letting things like this happen?
Amazing. I'm going to take your question too, so we can close with that.
Hi, I'm Sangamitra Penaseri from New York. It's my first time Davos, so thank you. Love being here. Thank you, panel. My question is, on one extreme, we talk about AI and going to the space and making life amazing in so many technological ways. And another way, we're talking about basic hygiene, food, clothing, shelter. And in your position with power, can we find some common ground to just work somewhere in the middle? Because every single promenade store over there has AI. Yet we're talking about such basic issues like gender violence and, what can companies and, forget what the president says or like one CEO says. Why can't we take other action? And what advice from your perspective, I think it's a long-winded question, but what is something that can be done practical from a cultural perspective? And how can we improve the lifestyle of women in a localized fashion?
Thank you so much. I'm going to take your last question here. And then I'm going to be asking each and every one of my beloved panelists to close us, responding the questions and give us your final thoughts.
Hello, everyone. My name is Najma, and I'm doing a PhD in STEM. So my question is maybe specifically for India, because I'm from India. The question is, I am here out of my classmates. I'm talking from a personal experience where I had my classmates, female classmates to be specific. A lot of them, they did engineering, but they dropped off because there was lack of opportunities. There was family pressure to get married and everything. There are so many factors affecting and obstacles for women specifically to grow in STEM. So what do you think can be a solution or to improve the opportunities? Because as you said, it is all interconnected, the poverty, the climate change, and also the gender parity. So what do you think is a good solution? Because you were going to talk about it, and I just want to know your perspective.
And we're in Switzerland, so we're going to finish on time, which means we're going to give this final round 5 minutes to answer and close with your thinking. I'm going to start with Ash and go that way. Try to respond the questions that you feel that are dear to you. A couple of, like most of them are like, what is the solution? What can we do? And then give your final thoughts. All of that in 4 minutes. Asha, go ahead.
I think I'll say I'm with you. We really need realistic solutions. We are speaking about AI compute, but the basics, we really need support from governments, corporates, and non-profits to scale this initiative and bridge the digital divide, because if we don't do that, then where will we see AI?
Thank you so much. Amitabh.
So, I would say that prepare for the long battle. This is not going to be easy. Let's have an understanding of a systems approach. That's what we need. However, there are also million mutinies happening at the moment. Work with them, strengthen them, and ensure that they are able to connect with each other. So there are no quick fix solutions. Recognize, let's start with ourselves. As in, the feminist dictum of personal being political should be the first for all of us. And then how do you start building a multi-layered pushback is what we need to do.
Thank you so much. Izzah.
So, I mean, I'm so happy to hear that question, the first one, which reminded me of my daughter. She's 17. And it brings me home that you have to have hope, right, no matter what. And I think the fact that we're talking about this, the fact that we're alive, we're here, certainly signals something that can be done. And I remember when I was 17, it was a religious leader, my ustaz, that told me the closest to God is one that services as many people as possible. So women are not just made to become mothers. Women are leaders. And I think therein lies that solution, the fact that you have to work for progressive ideas, for thinking. I went to a Catholic school, if you must know. So for me, again, education. We can't run away from that, and we can't run away from the fact that we have to engage different stakeholders, especially persons of influence.
Thank you so much. Carmen.
If we really want to advance gender equality, we need to recognize that we haven't achieved yet. So we need to recognize that there is still work to be done. We need to also look for those organizations that can help companies or other type of organizations to incorporate this gender perspective. We have to relearn and re-educate ourselves, and with that, we will make a change.
Kate.
I want to point out a disconnect and very partially answer your question on where are the mums. I feel so uncomfortable by the idea that white men think that they're discriminated against at higher rates, when at the moment we are seeing the lowest accountability for male violence amongst white men rising to the highest of offices when they are convicted. So what an uncomfortable disjunct that is. I think her name should be mentioned in every forum, so I'm going to say it. Where are the mums? Giselle Pellico. What an incredible example of a mother and of holding men to account. If we can take 1% of the power, of the bravery, of the courage that she showed in the past year, the world must keep talking about it. We must keep watching and listening and hold people to account.
And I hope that you can feel the passion of these leaders that gives you the signal that they will not stop even if the battle is very hard and the steep is very uphill. And I hope that you can join me in thanking them and thanking you for joining us in this incredible session. Thank you so much for the Economic Forum. And again, thank you so much for joining us. #WEF25, #OpenForum 2025. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's level the playing field together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God.